Okay, hi everyone, welcome.
Hi, my name is Marty, and this is my colleague James. And today we're going to talk about blood and circulatory system. And uh, we're getting most of our information from these two books. You can get them online. I think they're both available free for downloads, so you're welcome to do that. One is Circulation of the Blood. The other is All About the Body. And we're going to jump right in. Glad you could join us today.
Yeah, those books are available at heronbooks.com.
Thank you.
Yes.
So if you have any questions, please be sure to send us those questions using the Q&A box, and we will answer some of them. I can't guarantee we'll answer all of them. So here's the first question that I have for you today. Why do we bother studying about the blood and the circulation of the, why are we bothering with that? If you think you know, send your answer in the Q&A box. And while you do that, I'm going to tell you a little about systems. Systems are a group of things that come together to form a whole. Like the solar system is made up of the sun and the planets and the moons and asteroids and other rocks that are in that area. And that makes up the solar system. And similarly, the circulatory system, which we're going to talk about today, and specifically the blood, consists of the heart and arteries and veins and capillaries. And we'll get into what each of those things are and what the blood is made up of in just a little bit. Well, James, do we have any answers as to why study this circulation in the blood?
Yes, and we also have a really good question that I forgot to address right away. Where is Sam? Someone asked. Yes, Sam was scheduled to be here with Marty on this webinar today. He had another thing scheduled at this time, so I was happy to fill in. And so he's teaching another class to students here right now.
Right.
Yep. Lorna said, to understand your body better.
To understand your body better. Yes,
good. There's a reason to study this. Yes.
Okay.
That's a great answer. I love it.
I like it. We're going to go into a little more detail on that toward the end of the broadcast. So first, we're going to talk about parts of the blood. So you have blood. And James, could you put up this picture? And here's a picture, and it shows you the different parts of the blood. Of course, your blood is like a tube. The blood vessel is like a tube. And unfortunately, that one looks like it's cut in half, but it's just to show you the different parts of the blood. And there are just a few of the parts we're going to talk about today. And they are the plasma, as you can see in the picture. That's the liquid or watery part of the blood. It's made up mainly of water. And then you have the red blood cells. That's the part of the blood that carries oxygen and takes it to the cells. And then it takes carbon dioxide and it brings it back out to the lungs to get rid of it because your body doesn't need most of the carbon dioxide it makes. Then there are these things called platelets. What platelets do is if you get a cut or something like that, the platelets will help seal or fill in that cut so that you don't bleed to death. People who have a disease where they don't have platelets can die from a paper cut. So that's a very important part of the blood. And the last part of the blood are the white blood cells. And they have a picture of them. There's a picture of them right there.
Yep.
And these white blood cells help your body fight germs and bacteria and viruses and this sort of thing.
Yeah. Katya asked, why does the white blood cell look purple? I think it's just the way it's being shown in this drawing.
Right. I've seen others where it looks green or off-white. Yeah, it does look like a light purple, but it's just the artists decided to make it that color so you could see it better.
Yep. Thank you, artists.
Yes.
We have a few more answers as to why is it important to study the subject?
Why is it important?
Minji says, it's how we're alive. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that. Isaiah says, because we need to learn about ourselves, and it's important to learn about our body and how it works.
Right. The more knowledge you have about the body or about anything, the more control you can have over it. So that's a good thing to have, control over what's happening with your body.
Exactly. Lorna asks, and if we're going to talk about this a little bit later, just let me know.
Okay.
Do the blood cells change color when they lose their oxygen?
They change a little bit on some of the pictures. For instance, can they see this heart? Let's go.
Let me pull that up. We're going to pop out of this slideshow. There we go.
Okay, so here's a model of the heart. And in this model, they're showing veins or these tubes of blood tubes which contain carbon dioxide as this blue, and the veins or tubes, arteries or tubes which contain oxygen as red. In reality, it's just a bright red for those containing oxygen, and then a little darker red, not quite as bright for those containing carbon dioxide. So there's a little difference in color, but to exaggerate that or really show you the difference, very often you'll see a blue color, but your blood isn't really blue. Now, if you look through your wrist and you can see maybe some blood vessels and they kind of look blue to you, that's because you're looking at it through your skin. It's not really blue. It's really either a bright red or a darker red. Good question.
Great question. Okay, good. And another answer on why is it important to study, and Shanna, it's one of those, I know, because it's, and I hope I'm saying it correctly, because it's very important. So when someone starts to bleed and they could bleed to death, you can put something above to stop the blood flow.
That's more like first aid, but that's a great answer. Now let's bring up this picture next, James.
Excellent.
So this next picture is going to show you the composition or what the blood is made of. And you can see most of it is that liquidy part called plasma, which is mainly water, which is over half of what the blood is made of. Now just think about it. If your blood was mainly these red cells and these white cells, those are kind of solid. You can't get these solids pumping through these tubes called your arteries and veins if it's solid, so that we
It'd
have
be like a bunch of boats on a river with no
water. Exactly, right. And so we have plasma, which makes up over half of the water. I'll try that again. We have the plasma, which is made up mainly of water, and that's what carries the blood through these tubes. And then you have the white blood cells, which again fight disease, and the platelets, which heal cuts. That makes up about 4%. And then the rest, about 41%, is made up of the red blood cells. The red blood cells are what carries oxygen to your cells and what takes carbon dioxide out of your cells and brings it to the lungs. Your plasma can also carry food, dissolved sugars. We talked about that earlier last week when we talked about digestion and the digestive system. So when your body digests food, very often it breaks it down into sugars. Sugars are broken down from carbohydrates and that sort of thing. And if it's a protein that you're eating, like meat or fish or eggs or something like that, your body breaks it down into these little parts of the protein called amino acids, which we briefly discussed last time. And these amino acids, like letters of the alphabet, can come together. There are 20 different amino acids, and they can come together in lots of different orders, just like the 20 letters of the alphabet could spell out any word. The 26 letters of the alphabet could spell out any word. The 20 different amino acids could spell out any kind of protein, skin or liver or kidneys or muscles or whatever. Different amino acids. They're all carried in the plasma. Okay. So about 7 to 8% of the weight of your body is made up of blood. Think of how thin you could be if you didn't have blood. Of course, you'd be dead, but your body needs blood.
I think I'll keep the blood.
I'll keep the blood too.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, there are 3 kinds of tubes that in the circulatory system, and they are, you'll see a picture here. Thank you, James. Arteries. Arteries are what carries blood away from the heart, and usually arteries are arteries carry the type of blood that has lots of oxygen. Usually, I'll get to that exception in just a minute. And then veins are also big, thick blood vessels, and they're the ones that carry blood back to the heart. And usually, they're carrying carbon dioxide, with one exception, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Now, these capillaries are very important because capillaries are thin, little, tiny tubes that the blood gets pumped through. And they're about as thick as a human hair. So if you take your hairbrush and you look at a hair, that's about the size of these capillaries. And they're all through your body. You see, the arteries are too thick for the food to come through or for the oxygen to go through. The walls are too thick for that to happen. Same thing with the veins. They're too thick. So you need these capillaries, and the capillaries feed the cell. Their walls are very thin, and they allow blood to go through these little thin tubes and feed the cells with oxygen and feed the cells with sugars or food and take in carbon dioxide gas, which is the waste produced by the cell, and other wastes produced by the cell. And that's what happens with the capillaries. So any place you have a cell, you could see maybe in a picture veins and arteries, but don't forget, every cell you have needs to be fed food and oxygen. And so every cell has capillaries around it, feeding it. Very important.
So even the ones right here?
Everywhere.
And over here?
If it's a living cell, it has to have a capillary near it. Now the hair doesn't. I could cut the hair off, and that doesn't have a capillary. What do you suppose that is? What do you suppose the hair doesn't have a capillary feeding it? Because I just cut it here and I didn't bleed.
Well, that's good. That's good.
What do you think that is? I just thought of that question.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, here, let's see if because your hair is dead.
Your hair is dead.
Thank you, Lorna.
Yes.
Yeah.
My hair is really dead, but everyone's hair
But
is
okay dead.
Everyone's hair is dead. Now, in the scalp, in the skin here, that's where it's alive, and that's where it's fed by capillaries.
That's right. Milo says hair are just dead cells. Very good. Katya came with the same answer there. Kanan says because it isn't skin. That's correct. And Isaiah's asking, what do you mean dead? So like hair, fingernails, these are things that your body grew it, but it's not alive anymore. Like your hair is not living. It doesn't need blood pumped to it and blood brought away from it.
Right. It doesn't, it's not, this hair, the hair that I can pull out here, is not growing. It doesn't need food. It doesn't need oxygen. Now the cells here, which are getting fed air, which are getting fed food and oxygen, they're alive. But that's not this part. This is like James said, like your fingernail. Well, back here, it's growing, right where it meets your skin.
Yeah.
But at the end, after it separates from your skin,
Here, let me pull out of
it's not growing anymore.
There we go. So we can see a little bit better.
Okay.
Perfect. That's I'm glad you're talking about that. Logan asks, how then how does it grow? fingernails, the hair.
It grows just like the hair. It grows because here, where it's still alive, it's getting fed food and oxygen. In my scalp, where the hair is still getting fed food and oxygen, it's still growing. It's alive there, but it's not alive once it comes out.
There we go. Okay, good. Amber says, I'm creeped out, and that's okay. I've had that same thing happen when I've been studying science, or especially about the body, because there's things that maybe you haven't thought about it before. Maybe you haven't put a lot of thought into it because it just happens. It's normal. You know, everyone has hair. Everyone has fingernails. Everyone gets a cut and bleeds a little bit. But the more you know and the more you understand, the better you can use that information. Because I have a better understanding than I used to about the human body and how it works and what blood is doing and how it reacts to, you know, getting cut or something like that, I can deliver better first aid. I know more about like, you know, do I need to put a little Band-Aid on a cut, or do I need to put a big bandage on it, or do we need to go to the hospital?
Right. So don't freak out. You're just learning about the body, and you're learning about how it works. And parts of your body, most of your body is alive, but parts of it, like your hair and the ends of your fingernails, were alive once, but now they're not anymore.
Yep. And Lorna says it's kind of weird.
It is.
Yep, it really is. That's totally correct.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the heart. The heart is a muscle. And what do you do? What do you do when your bicycle doesn't have any air in the tires or is low? What do you do with it? You get a pump and you pump up the bicycle tire, so you pump up air. Well, this is a kind of pump too, and it doesn't pump air, it pumps blood. It pumps blood all through your heart. It pumps all through the heart pumps blood all through your body. And we'll talk about that. We're going to just jump right in. So the heart has 4 rooms. I like to call them rooms. You could think of them as rooms.
That's good.
I'm going to take this top part off, and you'll be able to see it has 2 upper rooms right here. Can you see that? And 2 lower rooms. And so what happens is blood comes in from your body, from your shoulders and your head. The top part of your body comes in through this vein. And from the lower part of your body, from your stomach and from your legs, it comes in this vein at the bottom.
So head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I have the song in my head. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
And thank you.
You're welcome.
And it comes into this room of the heart. Now, if you're looking at it, you would say, well, that's the top left room. But if it's my heart, and this is my right hand, it's the upper right. Doctors call it the upper right. So even though when you're looking at it, it looks like the upper left, for me, in my heart, it's on my right side. This is my right hand. So it's called the upper right. And it goes into this upper right room first. And then this part over here is just a little, you could think of it as a little door. And it'll open up, and the door will open up, and the blood will go down to this lower room. And then it'll squeeze shut, close the door, and then the heart squeezes. Now remember, this is blood that has carbon dioxide in it. And so this then squeezes and it goes out this tube, and it goes now to the lungs. You can see in the back, it splits up, and one of them goes to the right lung, and one of the tubes, this tube, goes to the left lung. Now remember, we talked about how arteries usually have red blood, that is, blood with oxygen. This is the exception. The arteries that go from the heart to the lungs have mainly carbon dioxide in them. And there's a fancy word that they use to describe this. This is pulmonary, and all pulmonary means is the lungs. So these are the pulmonary arteries that go to the lungs on your left side and on your right side. And then in your lungs, something amazing happens. Your lungs absorb the carbon dioxide gas and give oxygen to the blood. That's amazing, and it's wonderful, and it's a good thing. Otherwise, we wouldn't last very long. And so that's one of the dangers of smoking or vaping. You could damage your lungs.
And I need my lungs.
You need your lungs.
Yeah.
Especially if you're living.
Yes.
But if you're an athlete, you need it even more. And so vaping or smoking will damage your lungs and make you less of an athlete and perhaps harm your body in all sorts of ways. Anyway.
It makes it harder for the body to bring in oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide.
Right, because it clogs it up with the smoke from these other things. Anyway.
Yeah. Katya says, my blood exercises more than I do.
Yeah.
I know how you feel.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that a little more in just a minute. That's really funny. So then now you see these red parts over here, red tubes. So these red tubes are the tubes from the right lung that come back to the heart. And because they're going toward the heart, they're a vein. Remember, all veins go to the heart. But because these veins just came from the lungs, they're red. Same thing with the veins that come back from the left lung. They have oxygen in them, so they're coming back and they're going to this room in the top left, and now they're full of oxygen and they're getting ready to be pumped out to the body. And so this door opens and the blood can drop down to the lower chamber, and then this door closes. The reason it closes is because if it was still left open and your heart squeezes, it would squeeze it right back up to the top. We don't want it to go back up to the top.
We only want it to go one way.
We want it to go one way. So the door closes here. So when the heart squeezes, it goes out this big red artery on top. And this artery has a special name. It's called the aorta. It's the biggest artery. It's the artery that comes out from the heart. And then it splits up, and some of it goes to your upper body, and some of it goes to your middle, and some of it goes to your lungs. And what are you going to draw, Jen?
I think I'm going to put some of these major words that we are using a lot here, and I'll put the definitions up on the board so that if you guys are like me and you just want a little reminder about what are the most important words here.
Good idea.
We have that. Let's see how far up this goes here. Okay, good. So
you could think arteries away. Arteries away, because arteries always take blood away from the heart.
all right, I hope my handwriting is good. That is totally crooked. I'll leave it. It's okay.
Arteries
Takes
away.
blood away from heart. Vein
Veins.
equals.
And look, he's being color coordinated here. The arteries are in red because mainly arteries carry blood that have oxygen, with the exception of the arteries that go to the lungs, the pulmonary arteries.
Takes blood to the heart. Good. And pulmonary, again, having to do with your lungs.
Right. Okay, so that's what the heart does. Now,
Good. A few questions here.
Sure,
I think we'll
let's-
catch up on because they're going to come up with a lot of really good questions. I want to
Okay.
keep up with them.
great.
Oh, Mina asks, how fast does it go? The heart, how fast does the heart go?
Well, that's a good question. It depends on what you're doing.
Mhm.
If you're sitting there just resting or reading a book, then it's beating about 60 to 70, probably around 70 beats per minute. If you're running, guess what happens? Your heart needs to pump more to feed the cells that are using energy. So your heart can pump up a lot more. So you could go up to 130 beats per minute, something like that.
Okay. Let's see. Isaiah was asking a question about how big are the lungs? They're
The
about
lungs are pretty big. The heart,
big. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you about the heart first. If you make a fist, that's how big your heart is. Your heart is as big as your fist. This is from a smaller person than me, but not much smaller, but that's about how big your heart is. But your lungs are, if this is the size of your heart, I'd say your lungs could be this big.
Good. Oh yeah, we had a lot of people asking. Catherine and Cosmo and a few others asking, is that heart the right size?
The right
Close,
size
close.
for
Yep.
for a person, for maybe a middle schooler. If you make a fist, that's the size of your heart. The size of your heart is about the size of your fist.
There you go. Amber asks, is there blood that goes into your ears or not? Into the tissue and the skin that your ears are made of? Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep. Every part of your body, everything that there is skin and inside of that, there's always blood going through there.
Right. If it's alive, it needs food and it needs oxygen. And so it has to have a capillary feeding it. And so if it's not, like your hair or your nails, then it doesn't need that.
Good.
Now, there are these little veins and arteries here on the heart. I don't know if you can see that. I think you can.
Yeah. It's got
And
a little
so-
fuzzy there. I hope you can see that when we hold it a little bit closer.
I'll hold it a little closer.
Yeah.
And
It's a
so
little fuzzy,
these,
but you can see it.
these feed the heart because the heart is alive. It's a muscle and it needs food and it needs oxygen, and it can get that from these arteries and these veins. And then this vein will come and join up with a vein and go back into here. Okay, any questions on the heart?
I got some really good questions here.
Okay.
Shauna asks, what about when you're sleeping?
What about when you're sleeping?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're still breathing.
Yep.
Your heart is still pumping because you're still using up some energy, because you're breathing. The muscle right below your lungs, called the diaphragm, goes down, and you breathe in and pushes back up and breathes out, and your blood is still moving around in your body, and you're alive, and so your body still needs these cells.
Yeah. Even when you're sleeping, your heart isn't. It's always on, always
Right.
going.
Let's hope so.
Yes. Mimi asks, what is the speed of blood flow? I don't know the answer to that question. That's really
Well,
good.
it depends on how old you are, and it depends on what you're doing. If you're just sitting there relaxing, I don't have an exact number as to how many pints per minute, but I do have some other interesting data about the heart. If you're exercising or if you're a bigger person, your heart is going to be bigger, and so it's going to pump more blood, and it has more work to do to send all of that blood to all of the cells in your body. So it's a good question. It depends on the size of your body.
Okay. Milo asks, why does your heart beat fast when you're scared?
Great question. So in the back here, right above this little hollow or little space just below the ribs, are these kidney-shaped organs called the kidneys. If you've ever seen a kidney bean, it's that kind of shape. I think the bean was named after the heart rather than the other way around. Anyway, on top of these kidneys are these glands. Glands make chemicals for your body. So they're called the adrenal glands. And so you could be sitting there perfectly still, but you're watching a scary movie, and your adrenals start pumping out this chemical right into your blood, and it makes your heart beat faster. because if you're scared, you're getting ready to fight, or you're getting ready to run, or you're getting ready for something. So it starts pumping out, getting ready to, it's called fight or flight, to either fight or run away. And so your adrenal glands are putting this chemical in your body. As a matter of fact, this is a chemical that doctors can sometimes use. If a person's heart isn't beating properly, they can pump in adrenaline, which is the chemical, the chemical made by the adrenal glands. I was going to use the fancy word. It's called a hormone. And it's something that this gland produces that makes the heart beat faster. So if a person's maybe heart isn't beating properly, they might give them, doctors might squirt in adrenaline into their body so it gets the heart working the way it should. There's another way of doing it with electric paddles, but that's another story.
Yep. There you go. Great question. Isabella asks, I think we're back talking about the ear really quick. Do we bleed when we get our ear pierced? Is there less blood in that part of the ear? That's a really good question. My daughter, we've got her ears pierced a few times. And when you get a cut, or if something pokes your skin on your body, you bleed. You know, the blood is inside, you poke it, or you slice it, and the blood can then come out through that hole. But what happens when you get your ear pierced, or at least when my daughter got her ear pierced, let's say we have, you know, here's a blood vessel, and the and they put the earring in, and it comes like that through the blood vessel, and it cuts that blood vessel, right? But now it's also sealing up that blood vessel. The blood can't get out because that metal is in the way. If they were to put the earring in and then take it out, you would then have an opening, and that would allow blood to then come out and trickle out. That's more like if you poked yourself with a pin, like a push pin, and then you took the push pin out and it would bleed a little bit. That's what's happening. There's now an opening. But the earring is holding it shut kind of until your body can heal up and make that new skin around it so that it doesn't bleed anymore.
So James, what happens to the blood that's wanting to come through?
Well, it gets stopped. And like you were saying, there's those capillaries. I'm going to go back to the thing of capillaries really quick so we can see that. There's capillaries, all these tiny little capillaries everywhere throughout your body. So the blood's trying to go, here we go. Blood's trying to go this way. It can't, it's stopped. So it has to go around. If you're driving and the street is closed, you have to just find a smaller street to go around it. So it'll find another way to go around and deliver its blood that way.
Okay, great demo.
Great, great, great. Okay. Let me catch up with your questions here.
Sure.
All right. Wow, yeah, you guys are following along. This is great. Can you run faster when you're scared? That's been I get scared. I get that, my heart starts pumping. I get that chemical, that adrenaline in my system. And it definitely feels like I run faster.
I think you can. And I think there are stories that I've read where someone was fixing a tire on a car, and the part that holds up the car fell over, and the car fell down on someone, and this person would rush in and lift up the car until the other person could get out. And the person ordinarily can't lift a car, but because the adrenaline is working and it's going through your body, it's allowing you to do things that you normally can't do without the adrenaline.
Very good. All right. And Anjali says that they poked themselves yesterday, but there was no blood, but it hurt. Yeah, so like it was, I think we'll get rid of this. Thank you, drawing. You were a good drawing. Let's say we have our skin like this, and we've got all our different blood vessels and capillaries under the skin. If you have something like a really thin pin or a safety pin, a push pin, something like that, that comes in with just a really little poke.
Boop. Does it make that noise?
In my mind,
Okay.
it does. In my mind, when I get poked, it makes a boop sound. That's my added sound effect.
Okay, all right.
And your skin is stretchy, right? You can stretch it out and it'll kind of spring back a little bit. It's a little bit like a rubber band kind of. So if it's a small poke, sometimes that skin will just close right back up over it and seal it right away, because your body is very interested in not letting blood go away. It's important. It really needs it. So it's got all these really cool things built up to, people who figured out, who had bodies that didn't bleed as easily, tended to survive better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you might wonder, where does your body make blood cells, red blood cells?
I do wonder that.
Do you?
Yeah.
Because sometimes your red blood cells get old and tired. And so your body needs to take them and take them out of circulation, just like a dollar bill. A dollar bill gets old and worn. People take it out of, the government takes it out of circulation and prints new ones. Same thing with the body. They don't print new ones, but there's something, a gland or an organ here called the spleen on this side of your body.
I've heard that word.
Is that the right side of your body?
That's the left side.
Is that the correct side? Yes, that's the
Okay.
correct side. And so the spleen is here, and it's the guy that takes these old red blood cells and tries to repair them and put them back in. But if not, it holds on to them or breaks them down. And your bones, inside your bones are mainly hollow, but there's this, if you've ever eaten a chicken bone and you've broken it open, you can see this red stuff in the middle, and that's called the marrow. And the marrow is what makes new red blood cells. Now, bones are living, bones are growing, so bones get blood. They get a flow of blood from the capillaries.
The bones get blood. They also make blood.
They also make, well, they make red blood cells.
Right. They make red blood cells. Yep.
Right.
It's a nice trade-off there. Lorna says, Lorna calls them cell factories.
Right.
That's how I think of it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Can you bring up this picture, please?
Yes. There are good old friend arteries and veins and capillaries. Here we go.
Okay. So this, there's a picture here of 3 different types of arteries. Now, the one toward the middle of the page is a healthy artery. The blood is flowing, the other parts, the red blood cells that make up and all the different parts of the blood are flowing because it's a nice, clean, empty tube, empty except for the blood. Now, if you eat the wrong kinds of foods, your blood cells, your blood tubes can start to get blocked. And there's different reasons why doctors think that happens. Some doctors think that too much sugar can, in the blood, can like scrape the blood tube, either the artery or the vein. And so the fat, this yellow stuff that's in the picture, will come in. This is kind of a fat called cholesterol, can come in to seal that up so you don't bleed inside your body. So if you have these scratches inside your body from sugar or from other chemicals, then this cholesterol, this fat, can seal up the tube so you don't bleed. Others believe that if you eat too much of the wrong kinds of food, too much fatty foods like meats and things, cheeses and things like that, that it'll wind up building up this fatty cholesterol in your blood tube, like in that middle picture. Okay, so there's a big fancy word there called atherosclerosis, and what that is a it means that this cholesterol is filling into your tube, your blood tube, and now your blood's not flexible enough. Sometimes it's called hardening of the arteries because it prevents the blood from moving the way it normally does. And you could get so much cholesterol in your blood that it could block an artery. And when that happens, that's not good news to the cells because some cells can die. Now, if that happens in the brain, where the brain isn't getting any blood, it can lead to something called a stroke, where you go unconscious and you can die. You can die from a stroke. Or if the artery in the heart gets full and now the heart isn't getting fed enough food and oxygen, it can happen that part of the heart dies. That could be a heart attack. So you don't have to be a victim to these things. There are some things you can do to keep your veins and your arteries and your whole circulatory system healthy.
I see a lot of really yummy foods listed
There's
here.
a lot of yummy food, and some of this food I eat all the time. Avocados. I love avocados and nuts. Now, my son eats pomegranates. He loves pomegranates, but fish is also very good. I had sardines yesterday. Sardines are very high in the good stuff that'll prevent that from happening. And so ginger, garlic, coconut oil, all of these things, there are lots of good foods to eat to prevent problems with your heart. So earlier we talked about why study about circulation of the blood. Well, one of the reasons is so that you'll know the proper food to eat to keep your heart and your blood tubes running smoothly without a problem. Now, of course, the decision is up to you. If you eat the right types of food, you'll be healthier, you'll live longer. Now, maybe when you're young, it doesn't matter, but when you get older, and if you start having these tubes that start getting thick because you've eaten poorly and you made poor food choices, that's what could happen. That's why your mom and dad are probably saying, eat your vegetables, because vegetables are good. They give you food for your body, but they don't give you some of these bad things that will clog up the heart and the tubes. Okay, do we have any questions, James?
Yes, we have just a couple of minutes left. So I think I want to power through some of these questions that have piled up here. I'm sorry if they've started to pile up. Let's see if we can get to all of them. Shauna, several minutes ago, asked, why do you bleed really dark blood sometimes and sometimes you bleed light blood? I like that question.
I like that question too. I don't know what it means though.
I was reading about this just the other day, actually.
Oh, tell me.
So the bright redness in your blood, it comes from really blood that has a lot of oxygen.
Right.
It's coming from your heart to your body. It's gone to the lungs and picked up oxygen. Your heart has pumped it out to the body. It's full of oxygen. That's the brighter red blood. After it's delivered that oxygen, it loses the bright red. It's still red, but it's not as bright red. And it's on its way back to your heart, back to your lungs to pick up more stuff. So it's a little bit darker.
Oh, so you're saying if you're bleeding from a vein, it should be a little darker.
It'll be a little darker.
Okay.
Yep. And if it's from an artery, it'll be brighter.
Great.
Isaiah asks, is there such thing as blue blood? I'm glad you asked that so we could talk about it again really quick, because if you look at your arm and you can see blood inside there, it looks blue. It looks blue to me, but it's because it's, again, like you said, Marty, you're looking at it through your skin. So it's changing the color of it, of what it looks like to you. It's red, but it looks bluish through the skin. Let's see. Kanan says, after this, I'm probably not going to eat for a while. That's okay. That's okay. When you do eat again, when you get hungry again, then, you know, we've seen some good foods there. You can grab some watermelon, some asparagus, some avocado.
Ooh,
yes.
Vegetables.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Good food.
Okay. Why are these foods good for your arteries?
Because they prevent this fatty stuff from building up. They are sort of like little cleaners that go through the body and will help clean the blood tubes out. I have couple of interesting facts here. Your heart beats, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
About 100,000 times a day. That's more than once every second. That's 100,000 times a day. And in a year, that's a lot of zeros. And in a year, your heart beats 35 million times on average.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. We have time for a last question or two.
Okay, good. Yeah, just a couple more questions. Why isn't meat that good for your body? Amber, thank you for the question. It is good for your body. You need it, or you need the stuff that's in it, but too much of anything is a bad thing.
And a lot of the meat that you have has a lot of fat in it. And when you have meat that's fat, especially the fat that's solid at room temperature, like vegetable oil olive oil is not solid at room temperature, but meat is, the fat in meat is. And that's the fat that some scientists believe will go into your tubes, into your blood tubes, and start filling them up.
Good. All right, we are out of time here. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for bearing with me as I wrote in crooked lines.
And thank you for your artistry, James.
My pleasure.
And remember, stay curious about the world and especially your body. Curiosity is the cure for boredom. So I hope you all stay curious and avoid being bored.
I've never seen this guy bored in my life.
Have a great day.
Now, one last thing I'll say is if you go to heronbooks.com, you can use promo code Delphian30 and you can get 30% off. There's a number of courses and books available there for free right now. I forget.
Like these. These are available for free.
Circulation of the blood and all about the body. Those are available for free. There's a lot more. There's dozens. There's hundreds of courses on there. And you can get anything there for 30% off right now. Okay. I'm going to get going to set up for the next webinar. Thank you everyone for joining.
Bye for now.